that one of the common things that we, I think, believe many times is that self-interest is something natural and something that it has to happen. And the truth is that it seems to be like that, but there is not. There's no way that someone can actually be self-interest, because at the end you're going to die, and there's nothing for the self to be self-interest, because you're in that nothing in a way. So it's a kind of fallacy to say that it's natural. So, that it seems like it's something that we believe because the body has a tendency to self care of itself. And in the body, that's natural, right? The body will take care of itself. And the body, even there is about 10 trillion cells. And those 10 trillion cells, if some of the cells we have in cancer actually goes in their own way, things begin to collapse. But the fact is that all the body is working as in harmony, in general, if you're healthy. And so that idea that self-interest is actually valid or actually works, it doesn't work, because everything is in a way is cooperation. It seems like it's something, somebody's gaining something when I want everything for me, or I want my way, or I want to fulfill. But at the end, if you see that person in a big picture, it's not, because at the end, he has to give it away. So there is no self-interest in a way. I mean, it's an illusion.
But it seems that even the body, basically, if I take care of the necessities, I don't take care of it. The body is a phenomenal instrument, I feel, which, as you said, has how many million cells?
10 trillion.
10 trillion cells. And imagine if those 10 trillion said, because it's self-responsible. And if we clean ourselves and live the right way, the body really regenerates and works as a well-tuned instrument. And if we could, we are how many thousand people in the 12 people in this room, if we could work like that with each other, there would be understanding and caring.
The community.
It'd be working together. Not for my benefit, but for what we see is needed to be done. The heart doesn't say, I will beat faster today and rest tomorrow. It works according to the need. If it's needed to work harder, then it will pump more blood or whatever, It's very interesting. We should go into that deeper, because...
Actually, you said that if you gave an example, right? You said if you feel, nervous or something, or fearful, you'll look down or something. You didn't have to choose to do that, right?
No. And it happens until I stabilize myself.
So, I'm curious. I'd like to go into can we question whether there's a separate entity inside of us that chooses, yes, I'm going to look down when I'm nervous or something, or is that some, conditioning that's already there, it's part of a whole being, part of our memory. So
probably all of that is involved, and in spite of that, I do begin to trust you and look at you. And even if my face becomes red, my heart begins to slow down and gather itself for the next moment. There's something unique that goes up and down, the adrenaline kicks in, its effects happen, and then it realizes the lack of thread, and there is a sort of place of rest or homeostasis or understanding the other person, not fearing the other person. I don't know what I'm saying. Is it possible? We should all be like that as human beings.
Right. One possibility is that we're entirely mechanistic, right? We're just going to do exactly what we've been pre-programmed to do based on what we've learned and so on from 1 minute ago or 10, 20 years ago, 30, more. But is there another possibility?
I think that's a very good
I don't know.
Yeah, because what I said makes one think that if it is pre-programmed, I have no control over it. It's going to dictate. And what I find in your question very good, that we do have some free will. Is that your question? We do have a little bit of, I want to say a little bit because of autonomy to decide. At least we think we do.
Asha, do you do it? Do we have free will?
Do we have
Yes,
free will?
that's the question. Do we have free will?
That's a very good question, because what I take as free will, does it mean that I have the free will to come to this stop or go over there or choose the right things on the menu?
No,
Or what is, yes,
psychological.
so you come to that. So what does that mean?
Question is that do we have free will or we always enter in these
That is,
circuits, like rats going, in a labyrinth and coming the other side.
so is it possible for the rat that's going in a circle
Yeah, to break
to
it.
break it and
Yeah, to break
go
it.
free?
Yeah.
So what does that mean for me as a human being? You?
Yeah, this art is moving, it's acting. So why impose something else? So that would be the mechanical part. And then every machine, will, if it act by itself, then it will collapse. So every machine usually it depends on the energy that feed the machine.
Maybe what the essential difference with freedom and free will is, whether or not someone's actually not divided in themselves. Is that the sense of freedom psychologically we're talking about?
Because what do we think is self?
What do we think, or what is it?
Both. It is probably what we think it is. But if he tried to say that there was a lack of the self, and is it possible to be without this entity we call the self? What do we call self? Because then we can answer Martha's question also. He says the self will impose a will decide what to do. So what is that?
What I'm suggesting is thinking makes it feel like you have an ego, a self, and thinking makes make the assurance that you are there, the illusion that you are there, because actually we don't need to think to be there, necessarily. We can use thinking as necessary, but we don't have to be driven by thinking. That's it. Because that build up this false sense of who we are.
You said something interesting, like you said thoughts and feelings, because they're usually thought of as two separate things. So the question is, do thoughts have feelings, or do thoughts feel? And it seems to be somewhere in the middle there is where this.
Well, as soon as you name, something that happening to you, you make it thoughtful, so to speak. You make it, you name it, and you cut, and then it becomes felt or feeling. But if you don't name it, then it has a more deeper, it's a deeper movement if you don't name it. Very eager to feel secure, to feel that way. That's the level of consciousness that we are so desperate to have.
It also, like, I can have a deep sadness someday, and I can just be blue, right? And in my head, there's this why. All of a sudden, there's this thought: why do I feel this way? Or this, I'm sure see a lot happening to lots of people, but yeah, I mean, and somewhere in there is where the I exists in questioning us.
But I can ask the question.
Yeah, yeah.
Why is knowing what the self is important at all? That's kind of what I'm thinking right now, because in the actuality of this room, is that line of thinking the self, I mean, when we start asking about the self and putting interpretation to the self, this is completely intellectual. That's what I'm experiencing. I don't know if this is true, but to me, it's an intellectual labeling that in some way gives the self an identity or a way that one can look at it. But does that not distract from what is in fact going on, like right here, like what's actually the reality of the experience? When I'm in pain, I'm not thinking who is the I that is feeling pain. I really could care less. I want to not be in pain, right? And then I have all my mental processes and I invent all these solutions that are my own constructions, and but that question, who is the I see it perhaps valid, but I don't know if asking myself that question gives me any understanding of what is my actuality.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Right now.
And therefore you don't even think of corruption or what you saw on the film. You've raised a very deep question right now. So just go over it and we can go.
Until you question that I who feels the pain, you won't be free of it.
To who does it matter who's feeling pain? The pain is here. It doesn't, it's
but,
here.
Yeah, but you have this idea of me feeling the pain.
I have none, okay, the idea
She
of
has
me
no
feeling
pain
pain.
right now.
I am grief, I am anger,
Right.
I am hurt.
Right.
I don't know where the separation begins of the self in the I. All I know is that there is currently pain being experienced in some way.
Right now, at this moment.
Me? Confusion, perhaps.
Yeah,
Not
so
pain, not pain.
So we can get back to what's happening.
But it actually is a good point to stick with it, I think, for a moment, because, if I'm feeling grief, I'm feeling pain, whatever, do we ever ask ourselves, is that me having the pain or having the feeling, or is it there's just the feeling?
Right, right, yeah.
Right.
It feels like the instant I bring in this me and I, and the way we seem to have this habit, I've generated a construct that has no bearing actually on the space that I am.
We're feeling something, and the awareness is, what is this that I'm feeling?
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to separate a feeling from the entity that's feeling it. So then the self does come in a little bit, but in that examination of what the feeling is, then comes, where did sometimes perhaps it might be, where does this come, what is it? Like, what does this manifest as, whether it's a heart that's beating faster when I'm feeling nervous about speaking, or an awareness of what the associations with the feeling are. And then it is, where did that come from? What brought this? When was the moment that this feeling happened? And so it's all these different understandings.
Or at what point, when I identify that feeling, I personalize it and say, this is my sorrow,
Mm-hmm.
or this is sorrow.
Mhm.
The identification is first with the sorrow and then me coming into it.
Mhm.
So is that whole process necessary when we look at
And it is a movement that indicate that there's a universal sorrow, there's a universal pain that touch, that we hope we all have experienced at some point, and human beings have experienced for a long time. And that movement is so deep and so strong that we have to solve it somehow. And the way that I see it more useful is to solve this as a community. Not as a personal pain, but as the pain of humanity. And that will be kind of the beginning to connect ourselves with who we are as a human being, and what we have done.